Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down here, we're looking at something with a clear structure. A business plan, a historical event, a new piece of tech.
Right. Something with a logic we can unpack.
Exactly. We try to find the logic in the chaos.
Yeah.
But today is different. Today we're looking at a stack of research that's trying to find the logic inside of madness itself. We've got neuroscience papers, cultural criticism, and we have a criminal case file from 2012 that is, and I'm not exaggerating, one of the most disturbing things I've ever read.
It's a heavy one. I think disturbing is absolutely the right word. And not just because of the violence, which we'll get to.
Right.
It's because of the psychological mechanism that's driving it. We're looking at this intersection of how the human brain processes meaning and how our modern culture might be, well, breaking that process.
We're talking about something called the Truman Show delusion and a neurological concept, aberrant salience. But to get these sort of high-level ideas, we have to start on the ground.
Yeah, you have to.
In the mud, literally. We need to talk about Peter Keller.
Peter Keller is the anchor for this whole conversation. He is the case study that just haunts every other piece of research we're going to look at.
So let's set the scene, because the visual here is. It's crucial for understanding the paradox. It's 2012. You have a man, Peter Keller, he's 41 years old.
Living in North Bend, Washington. A very normal-seeming place.
Totally normal. To the outside world, he's a computer technician. He has a wife, Lynette, and 18-year-old daughter, Kayleen. He is, for all intents and purposes, the guy next door.
Pays his bills, goes to work, the whole 9 yards.
But secretly, for 8 years, this man has been vanishing into the Cascade Mountains.
And he's not just, going for day hikes to clear his head. This is something else entirely. He's engaged in an engineering project of a massive scale.
Right. He is building a bunker. And not just like a hole in the ground with a tarp over it.
No, this was serious.
He is digging into the side of Rattlesnake Ridge. He's hauling 60-pound bags of concrete, cutting down trees for support beams, installing a ventilation system. The police reports, they describe it as a fortress.
It was multi-level.
Multi-level. It was so well camouflaged that you could literally walk within 5 feet of the entrance and you would never, ever know it was there.
And inside, he was stocked. He had a generator, huge stockpiles of food, weapons, ammunition. He even had a blow-up mattress. He was preparing for a complete and total withdrawal from the world.
And usually when you hear about a guy like this, someone building a secret fortress in the woods, you have a specific profile in your mind.
Oh, yeah, you do. Survivalist.
Survivalist, hermit. You think this is a guy who wants to disappear. He wants to get off the grid. He wants society, the government, his neighbors to just leave him alone.
That is the standard profile. It's usually a mix of what we call schizoid withdrawal, which is just a profound lack of interest in social relationships, and a paranoid fear of surveillance.
And if you're that person, if you are truly paranoid,
your primary goal is operational security, OPSEC. You leave no trace. You certainly do not create evidence.
And that is the hook. That's the paradox that just grabbed me when I was reading these files. Peter Keller didn't just build a secret bunker.
No.
He filmed himself doing it.
Extensively. He documented everything.
He created a massive archive of video logs. He essentially produced his own reality TV show about building a secret bunker to hide from reality.
The irony is just staggering.
He sets up the camera on a tripod, walks into the frame, and films himself digging. He narrates the construction process. He talks to the lens.
There's this one quote in the logs that just, it gave me chills because of how casual it is.
What do you think? I know the one you mean.
He's showing off his gear, and he says, just like this, I usually come up with a 30 and 40-pound pack. He's using this instructional tone.
It's the tone of a YouTuber.
Exactly. It's like he's hosting a DIY channel for doomsday preppers.
Which forces us to ask the inciting question for this entire deep dive. Why? Why would a survivalist who is going to these extreme, backbreaking lengths to hide from the world document his location, his supplies, and his inner thoughts for an audience that isn't supposed to exist?
That contradiction, the deep desire to hide versus the compulsion to perform, that is the key to understanding his mind.
Right.
And to understand that, we can't just look at his psychology. We have to look at his biology.
At the chemistry.
We have to look at the chemistry of the brain.
So let's pivot to the science. We've got sources here from the NIH and PMC that talk about this concept called aberrant salience. Now, salience is one of those words that gets thrown around in academic papers, but let's just break it down. In a healthy brain, what is salience?
Salience is, quite simply, the brain's ability to identify what is important. Your brain is a processing machine that is just constantly bombarded with sensory data.
Right.
I mean, right now, you're hearing my voice, but you're also hearing the hum of the lights, maybe traffic outside. You're seeing the pattern on the table, the light reflecting off your glass, millions of bits of data pouring in every second.
If I paid attention to all of it equally, I'd just freeze. I wouldn't be able to function.
Exactly.
Oh.
You'd be paralyzed by the noise. So your brain has a filter. It needs to decide what is salient, what matters.
The signal from the noise.
The signal from the noise. If we were walking in the woods 10,000 years ago and a twig snapped, your brain would need to highlight that sound immediately. Pay attention. That could be a tiger. That feeling of importance, that's salience.
And the mechanism that drives this is dopamine, right?
Yes, and this is a really important correction for a lot of people to make. Pop culture tells us that dopamine is the pleasure chemical.
The reward molecule.
Right. You eat a piece of cake, you get dopamine. You get, like on social media, you get dopamine. But that is a gross oversimplification.
So it's not just about feeling good.
No, not at all, really. In this context, dopamine is a motivational salience signal. It's a chemical flag.
A flag.
Think of it like a highlighter pen. When a dopamine neuron fires, it's telling your conscious mind, this thing right here, this is significant. Look at this. Pay attention. Learn from this. It drives attention, not just pleasure.
Okay, I'm with you. So in a healthy brain, dopamine highlights the tiger and ignores the wind rustling the leaves. What happens when we get to aberrant salience?
The filter breaks. The highlighter pen goes haywire.
So it starts coloring the whole page.
The whole page. Specifically, we're looking at something called presynaptic mesostriatal dopamine dysfunction. That's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
It just means the part of your brain responsible for tagging things as important starts firing randomly and excessively.
So what does that feel like?
Okay, imagine you're walking down a busy street. In a normal state, you ignore the strangers, the cars, the billboards, it's just background. But with aberrant salience, suddenly a red car drives by and your dopamine neurons fire as if it's a tiger. You get this massive jolt of importance. You feel with every fiber of your being that this red car means something.
But there's no context for it. It's a raw feeling of significance without a reason attached.
Exactly. And that is terrifying. A psychiatrist named Carl Jaspers called this the delusional atmosphere.
The delusional atmosphere.
It's the prodromal phase, the early stage of psychosis. The person feels that the world has changed in this subtle, really eerie way. Everything feels staged. Everything feels, and this is a quote from the literature, pregnant with significance.
Pregnant with significance. That is such a vivid, haunting phrase. It captures that feeling of suspense. Like in a movie when the music swells and you know something is about to happen, but you don't know what it is yet.
And now imagine living in that moment of suspense, 24/7. It creates this tremendous anxiety. The human brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. It hates confusion. It's a sense-making organ.
So it has to figure it out.
It has to know why. Why am I feeling this way? Why is everyone looking at me? Why does that license plate feel like it's a message for me? Why do I feel like the central figure in a global drama?
So the brain has to solve the puzzle. It has to invent a story to explain the chemistry.
Yes. And this is the aha moment. This is what's called the crystallization of the delusion. To resolve the tension of that delusional atmosphere, the brain grabs a narrative. And if you feel like the whole world is watching you and everything is staged, what is the most logical explanation in our modern world?
Well, traditionally you might think, I'm a spy, or the gods are watching me, or something like that.
Or, if you live in the late 90s and 2000s, I must be on a reality TV show.
And that brings us to the second pillar of our deep dive, the Truman Show delusion. This isn't just a metaphor we're using. This is a documented phenomenon in the medical literature.
It is. It was named, obviously, after the 1998 film The Truman Show, where Jim Carrey's character discovers his entire life is a set and all his friends and family are actors.
Yeah.
The term was actually coined by two brothers, Joel Gold, a psychiatrist, and Ian Gold, who's a neurophilosopher. They started seeing a pattern in patients coming into Bellevue Hospital in New York.
And these weren't patients just claiming, the CIA was bugging their phones. It was something more specific.
Much more specific. They were claiming their families were actors.
Yeah.
That their lives were being broadcast 24/7 for the entertainment of a global audience. They believed there were cameras behind the mirrors in their bathrooms, that their coworkers were reading from scripts.
It's just fascinating because it shows how culture colors our madness,
Mhm.
the biology, that aberrant salience, the dopamine firing. That might be the same as it was in 1950.
Right, the engine is the same.
But the story the brain tells to explain it has changed completely.
That's the cultural zeitgeist theory. In the 1940s, paranoid patients thought radio waves were controlling their thoughts.
Because radio was the new, mysterious technology.
It's exactly. During the Cold War, it was the KGB and wiretaps. In the 2000s, it became reality TV. And now we're seeing it evolve into ideas about living in a simulation or being controlled by algorithms. As Ian Gold puts it, cultural realities are always intruding into the psychotic experience.
It just makes sense. If your brain needs a model to explain why you feel watched, it's going to grab the model that's most available in the culture. And let's be honest, in 2026, the idea of being watched isn't even that crazy anymore. We are watched.
That's the complicating factor, isn't it? We all have what's called a suspicion system in our brains. It's wired to detect malevolent intent. In the modern world, that system latches on to real things. Surveillance cameras, GPS tracking in our phones, social media.
But there's a key difference between thinking the NSA is tracking your metadata and thinking you're the star of the Truman Show.
A huge difference.
And what is that?
Grandiosity.
Grandiosity.
Yes. Standard paranoia is mostly fear. They are out to get me. The Truman Show delusion is a mix of paranoia and, well, narcissism. They are watching me because I am important enough to be watched. If the entire world is tuning in to watch you eat breakfast, you must be a pretty compelling figure. You're not a victim, you're the protagonist.
And that brings us right back to Peter Keller. Because when you look at his life, there was this massive gap between who he was and who he thought he should be.
A chasm. On the surface, Peter Keller was a computer technician. He was a suburban dad. He made, and this is according to his own daughter, lame dad jokes.
Right.
He gave his wife money for a new recliner just before the end. He attended his daughter's graduation. It was a banal, normal life.
But in the bunker.
Right.
In the bunker, he was the hero.
In the bunker, he was the brilliant survivalist. And this is where the analysis of the video logs from Dr. Andrew van der Vaart is so insightful. He argues that Keller wasn't a hermit.
He was role-playing a hermit.
He was role-playing a hermit. That distinction is everything.
Let's dig into that, because if you're a real hermit, you want zero contact.
Correct. A person with what we call schizoid personality traits, which is often associated with the whole hermit archetype, they usually have no interest in social interaction at all. They don't care what you think of them. They just want to be left alone.
And a person with paranoid delusions fears that people are trying to hurt them.
Right. And neither of those psychological profiles would set up a tripod and record themselves for hours on end.
But Keller is constantly addressing an audience. He literally says things like, I don't know if you can see me. He's worried about the lighting for his shot.
He's performing expertise. When he talks about his backpack weight or how he reinforced the roof of the bunker, he's demonstrating his competence to an imaginary viewer. He's building a narrative where he is the capable, rugged individualist.
There's also a really disturbing element that Dr. van der Vaart calls the sympathy play.
Oh, this is crucial for understanding the violence that followed. In the videos, Keller constructs this narrative where he's the victim. He complains that his wife, Lynette, is draining him of money. He paints her as this obstacle to his freedom.
But the financial records, they showed something completely different, right?
The complete opposite. Keller was the one hemorrhaging money. He spent thousands and thousands on the bunker, on guns, on all those supplies. He was withdrawing cash constantly. But in his show, in the script he was writing in his head,
He needed a villain.
he needed a villain. He needed a reason why he was forced to run away and live in the woods. So he cast his wife in that role.
It's like he's trying to build a narrative arc for his character. The tragic hero forced into the wilderness by the nagging wife who just doesn't understand him.
Exactly. And once you turn the people in your life into characters in your movie, you strip them of their humanity.
Right? They're just props.
They're plot devices.
Yeah.
Characters in a movie don't have inner lives. They don't have rights. They are just supporting cast or they're antagonists.
And this leads us to the darkest part of the story, the inciting incident of his movie. In April 2012, Peter Keller murders his wife and his daughter, Kayleen. He shoots them execution style in their own home. He sets the house on fire to cover his tracks. And then he just retreats to the bunker.
It's a horrific, brutal act. But if you look at his video logs from after the murder during the standoff with police, the detachment is absolute. It is just chilling.
He doesn't sound like a man who just killed his family.
No, he sounds like a man reviewing a film he just watched.
He says, "My escape is death, and I'm okay with that." And then there's this line that just, it sticks with you. At least it'll be exciting. Won't be boring.
Will be boring.
Yeah.
That is the key phrase. That is the comment of a spectator, not a participant.
Yeah.
If you are living a tragedy, it is painful, it's terrifying, it's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're watching an action movie, you want excitement. You want the plot to move forward. Keller had successfully detached from the experience of his life to become the viewer of his life.
Dr. Vandervaart calls this outsourcing the conscience.
Yes. Because if you view your life as a movie, then moral consequences don't feel real. They're just part of the story. You're just watching the script play out.
You're just rolling with the plot twists.
Oh, the main character just killed his family. Wow, didn't see that coming. I wonder what happens next.
There's a philosophical angle here that the source material brings up, a Nietzschean analysis. The Apollonian versus the Dionysian. I want to spend a minute on this because I think it really explains the why of the filming.
It's a fascinating application of Nietzsche's theory on art. So for Nietzsche, these were two opposing forces. The Dionysian is the chaotic, primal, passionate force. It is the dirt under your fingernails, the adrenaline, the blood, the raw reality of nature.
So living in a hole in the ground, hiding from the police, that is a purely Dionysian experience.
Completely. It's visceral, it's messy, it's real in the most unpleasant way.
And the Apollonian is the opposite. It's order, light, visual beauty, the dream state. It's the sculpture, the painting, or in modern terms,
The vlog, the video, the curated image.
So Keller was trying to combine them.
He was trying to mediate the Dionysian through the Apollonian. See, actually being a survivalist, shivering in the damp earth, eating cold beans from a can, being utterly alone, that's miserable. It's just suffering.
But if you film it, if you frame it,
Suddenly it becomes art. It becomes a story. It has a shape, a narrative.
he couldn't just be a man in the woods.
No,
He had to be a character in the woods.
because just being a man in the woods is lonely. And frankly, for a narcissist, it's boring. It has no audience. The camera provided that Apollonian distance that made the Dionysian squalor bearable. It gave his suffering meaning.
That connects right back to the narcissism and depression mentioned in his profile. The source material suggests Keller was just deeply disappointed with his actual life.
He was. He felt he was meant for something great, something more. But the reality was, he was a middle-aged computer tech living in the suburbs. That gap between his grand expectation and his banal reality creates a vacuum.
And the delusion fills that vacuum.
It offers an escape from mediocrity. The siren song of the delusion pulls you in because it promises that you are special, that your life isn't boring, it's a movie.
It's the neuroplasticity of the delusion. The more you think it, the more you reinforce those neural pathways until it's the only road your brain knows how to take.
Exactly. It starts as a wacky idea, what if I'm on a show? But it solves so many emotional problems for him that he just keeps returning to it. Eventually, the brain literally rewires itself around that narrative. It becomes the path of least resistance. It just makes sense.
I want to pivot back to the mechanics of the brain for a second. We talked about dopamine and the aha moment, but there's another theory in the notes here called the Bayesian brain theory. How does that explain why someone would believe something so obviously false as, my family are paid actors?
The Bayesian brain theory is, well, it's really the leading model in cognitive neuroscience right now. It essentially says our brains are probability machines. We hold an internal model of how the world works, and we're constantly making predictions based on that model.
So I predict this floor is solid. I step on it. It is solid.
Right.
Prediction confirmed. Model holds.
Right. But if you stepped on the floor and it felt like a sponge, you would get what's called a prediction error. Your brain would go, whoa, reality does not match my model. And that error signal is incredibly important. It tells the brain to update its model of the world.
Okay, so how does that apply to psychosis? Where's the prediction error coming from?
Well, remember that dopamine dysfunction, that aberrant salience.
The highlighter pen going crazy.
Exactly. From the brain's perspective, that random surge of dopamine acts as a massive prediction error signal. Your brain is getting a chemical signal that says, surprise, importance, new data, all the time.
So it's getting error signals when nothing is actually happening in the real world.
Yes. The brain basically says to itself, my current model, the model that says I am a regular guy living a boring life, that cannot account for all these intense signals of significance I'm feeling. My model must be wrong. I need a new model.
And the model, I am on a TV show, that fits the data.
It fits the internal data perfectly. If you are on a TV show, of course everyone is watching you. Of course random events are actually scripted. Of course that red car was a signal from the producers. The delusion minimizes the surprise. It minimizes the prediction error.
So it's a logical conclusion.
It's a logical conclusion to an illogical biological signal.
That is deeply unsettling. It means the delusion is actually the brain trying to be rational.
In a way, yes. It's the brain doing its job. It's trying to maintain a coherent worldview in the face of incoherent data coming from its own chemistry.
So if this is a biological mechanism, this trap the brain can fall into, can we catch it before it destroys a life? The outline mentions early detection. Is there a way to spot this at-risk state before someone, buys a shovel and starts digging a bunker?
We can, and this is where the hope lies in all this. Psychosis very rarely just snaps into existence overnight. There's a long runway. Researchers call it the at-risk mental state, or RMS, or sometimes ultra-high-risk, UHR.
And this usually starts in adolescence or young adulthood, right?
Often, yes, that's the most common onset period. And there are specific symptoms to watch for. Not full-blown hallucinations, you're not seeing dragons, but what are called basic symptoms.
Like what? What's a basic symptom?
Subjective disturbances. It's a change in the quality of experience. A patient might say, "My thoughts feel really loud today," or "the colors in the room feel too bright," or they might have trouble dividing their attention between two things. It's a sensory processing glitch.
It sounds like the filter is just starting to leak.
That's a perfect way to put it, and then you can get attenuated psychotic symptoms. This is where the interpretation of those feelings starts to get a little weird.
So suspiciousness.
Suspiciousness, magical thinking. Like, I was looking about a song and then it played on the radio. That can't be a coincidence.
I feel like everyone has had that thought for a split second, though.
For a split second, yes. But the healthy brain dismisses it if you dwell on it. If you start to really believe the radio is communicating with you, that is the red flag.
Are there actual tests for this, like a checklist?
There are. The MDPI source we looked at mentions the Aberrant Salience Inventory, the ASI. It's a questionnaire, and it asks things like, do you ever feel like the world is a stage? Do trivial things sometimes feel intensely meaningful? Do you feel like you are the focus of attention even when no one is there?
And if someone answers yes to a lot of these, what happens then? What do we do? Can you fix it?
You can intervene. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is surprisingly effective in these early stages. It's about teaching reality testing.
So you help the person reframe the thoughts.
You help them look at that red car and say, okay, your brain is telling you it's a sign. Your feelings are real, but what is the evidence for that? Is there a simpler, more likely explanation? You help them rebuild that filter manually with their conscious mind.
And stress is a factor too, right? I saw that mentioned.
A huge factor. Cortisol, the stress hormone, has a major impact on dopamine regulation. High chronic stress can trigger that dopamine flood. So literally, stress reduction techniques, meditation, good sleep, exercise are neuroprotective. They help dampen the noise.
It's just tragic to think about Peter Keller in this context. He was living the secret double life for 8 years. That must have been an incredible amount of stress.
It's a feedback loop, a vicious cycle. The bunker caused stress. The secrecy caused stress. The stress increased the dopamine dysfunction. The dopamine reinforced the delusional belief that he needed the bunker to be safe. It just spiraled until the only way out, in his mind, was the season finale.
I want to zoom out now, because Peter Keller is an extreme case. He's the absolute worst case scenario. But the sources we're looking at suggest that, that we're all living on a bit of a continuum here.
Oh, absolutely.
Psychosis isn't a binary switch. You're not just sane or insane. It's described as an extended phenotype.
That's right. Psychotic-like experiences, or PLEs, happen in the general population way more often than we admit. Have you ever thought you heard your name called in a crowded room, but you turn around and no one's there?
Definitely. All the time.
Have you ever felt, just for a moment, like a coincidence was too perfect, like the universe was winking at you?
Or that feeling of walking into a room and just knowing everyone was just talking about you?
That's a flicker of aberrant salience. It's a blip. Usually we brush it off, we reality test it immediately and say, no, they weren't talking about me, I'm just being self-conscious. But the modern paradox, as some of these articles call it, is that we're now building a world that reinforces those feelings.
We are building a world that is the Truman Show.
We are all living in a version of it. We carry broadcasting devices in our pockets. We curate our lives for an audience. We edit our own highlight reels. We check our analytics to see if people are watching us.
This blurs the line between the person and the persona.
And think about the agency issue. A core component of psychosis is a loss of the sense of agency, that feeling that you aren't in control of your own actions.
Okay.
Now, when we constantly perform for social media, when we do things for the gam, as they say, are we acting with full agency? Or are we following a script that's been dictated by the algorithm and what gets likes?
That is a heavy question. If I go to a beautiful sunset and my first instinct isn't to watch it, but to pull out my phone and film it, am I experiencing the sunset? Or am I just the cameraman for my followers?
You are outsourcing the experience. You're prioritizing the capture of the moment over the reality of the moment. You're engaging in that same Apollonian detachment that Keller did, albeit in a much, much less violent way.
You're stepping out of your body to become the viewer of your own life.
And the danger isn't just that we all become annoying influencers. The danger is that if we lose that sense of agency, if we start to feel like we are just characters in a content stream, we risk detaching from the reality of our own lives.
And from the reality of other people, if I'm the main character, then you're just an NPC, a non-playable character. And that makes empathy very, very difficult.
That's the final tragic lesson of Peter Keller. He illustrates the extreme end of spectating one's own life.
He believed the script was already written.
He surrendered his humanity to the narrative. He let the movie dictate his actions, even when those actions were monstrous.
So we've traced this path all the way from a single firing neuron, a little dopamine flare, to a feeling of strangeness, to a cultural narrative about reality TV, and it ends in the tragic, complete detachment of a man who viewed his family's murder as nothing more than a plot twist.
It's a reminder that our grip on reality is fragile. It's biological, yes, but it's also shaped by the stories we tell ourselves, and the stories our culture tells us are available to choose from.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. We live in a world where we are increasingly encouraged to broadcast our lives. We are told, implicitly and explicitly, that if it isn't posted, it didn't really happen. By constantly viewing ourselves and others through screens, are we damaging our own salience filters? If we treat our lives as content, do we risk losing the ability to feel them as reality?
And if the camera is always rolling, who's directing the scene? Is it you? Or is it the algorithm?
Something to think about next time you reach for your phone to record a moment instead of just living it. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.
Stay grounded.